Welcome back. Well, at some point in your life, your perfect angel turns into a teenager. And they do what teenagers do, which pretty much means that they don't want to talk to you all the time. They don't want you telling them to clean their rooms. And your punishments maybe just don't work anymore. So here to talk about how to make everyone's lives a little easier is Dr. Robert Reynolds of the Reynolds Clinic in Middletown. Welcome, doctor.
Thank you, Kara.
Thank you so much. So, number one, you say as parents of teenagers especially, it's a different game than with the little ones. And first you need to be asking yourself, what is your goal here? What is the goal?
What are you trying to accomplish? Because if all you want is compliance and punishment is the only tool you've got in your toolkit, a typical teenager will eat you for breakfast.
So you say really you should be thinking of it every time you're disciplining. If you're this is going to take some awareness on our parent part, but every time you're disciplining, you should be using it as an opportunity to teach and awaken their inner Jedi Master.
Well, that's kind of how I see it. And I think one of the reasons why Star Wars appeals to kids, or teenagers in particular, is because they know inside there is their inner wisdom. And it's our job as their parents to try to awaken it, not force it down their throats. So when we talk about goal, what our goal should be is how do we teach them to learn to self-discipline, to discipline themselves, because that's what's going to prepare them for life.
All right. So, well, that's a whole other topic. But let me go on to the next one. So pick and choose your battles. As parents, you don't want us actually coming down hard on everything.
Yes, because otherwise it's just going to lead to alienation and resentment. Children will oftentimes lie because they're constantly being confronted with everything that they're doing or not doing. So we have to be careful. For example, we've got the winter coming up, and it's typical for kids nowadays to want to run out the street, cross the street, see their friends in their T-shirts, and parents are inevitably telling them, you got to put your coat on, don't leave the house, and that can engender an argument, an unnecessary one in my opinion, because who's the one who's going to be cold? Not you. Him. But on the other hand, when we have safety issues, when we have more practical issues like curfews, for example, and them coming home too late beyond a curfew that you have set, then you might want to bring that up as an issue that this is an area that we're going to set a limit on. And the consequences need to flow from what the violation was. And also, it needs to be a negotiation, which is where we're probably going next.
Yes. So the consequences, you should say ahead of time, just back to that you know what the consequences are for breaking curfew, and you absolutely have to follow through on that.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So discuss and negotiate. This surprised me because I thought as parents we're not really supposed to be in the business of negotiation.
Well, that's true until our kids get to be teens, and then it's all about negotiations. And if you've got a teen, you know it's a constant debate. And that's because of where their brains are developmentally. Their brains develop in a very sort of linear way. The first thing that comes online is their desire to be self-determining. The last thing that comes online is good judgment. And so that's where that's where they need our help. They need our help to bring good judgment online as soon as possible so that they can begin to regulate their lives. And so it's a debate because you need to get buy-in from the child. I'm not saying that you need to be wishy-washy. You need a backbone. But you've got to help, and you've got to discuss, and you've got to work out solutions cooperatively, because otherwise it leads to resentment, alienation, and dishonesty.
Okay, so when something goes wrong, you say you might want to ask them, how do you want to fix this?
Exactly. And you would be surprised how often the teen will administer a harsher consequence than you would.
Okay. All right, the next thing you say, be a role model, because if we're not respecting our children, then they are not respecting us.
How can we? How realistic is that? We're going to yell at our children, and we expect them to treat us respectfully? But this is what happens at households all across America.
Well, I think parents feel like they're not being heard, so they yell.
Exactly. And when they still don't feel like they're being heard, they yell even more. And
don't yell?
I can sit here, and it's easy for me to sit here and say don't yell, because I'm not in the middle of the fray. But what I'm saying is it doesn't get you where you want to get to, which is treating your child respectfully and having your child treat you respectfully, because that's the only way that these things get resolved.
Okay, you say, remember, back to Star Wars, Luke Skywalker needed the patience and wisdom of Yoda. So we all have to be Yoda, which is a tall order.
Well, but we all need role models. And I think Yoda is a good role model for a parent.
Right, right. So, and if you do lose it and you scream, should you apologize?
Yes, and take ownership for it, because that's the real world. You have lost your cool, and if you expect that your child's going to take ownership for some of his disrespectful behavior, you have to set that as a model yourself.
All right, so skillful parenting is a topic that is deep, right? So Dr. Reynolds is going to be covering this at one of his upcoming seminars in January. One is being held the evening of January 25th, the other on Saturday morning, January 28th. So after you've survived the holidays, you can figure out how to get your parenting in check for the new year. You can go to Reynolds Clinic parentsneedthat.com. Thank you so much.
May the force be with you.
Okay, thank you, doctor. Yes, parents need that. Scott?
My joke was, if you have 3 children and are expecting another, well, may the 4th be with you.